Welcome to the Improv Breakdown. My guest today is someone who means quite a lot to me personally. He's one of my closest friends, in life. He's the only person that I've consistently partnered with on any creative project for anywhere. We've been together 7.5 years so far, and counting. That is a huge record for me. Together, we are Rolland and Riches. We've headlined 3 festivals. We've played in 20 total so far. In 2015, we won a duo competition at the IO West. And when we're not performing, we produce events like the Improv Salon. But aside from working with me, Rolland's resume is pretty impressive. He's a sought-after teacher. His workshops, Keep Your Eyes Off the Road, Those Darn 3 First Lines, and Culture of Trust have helped hundreds of improvisers around the U.S. level up their game. He's a man of many talents. He was part of the award-winning a cappella group Evolution. He's a salsa dance instructor, a polyglot, and a voiceover actor with 20 years experience who could be heard on everything from commercials to instructional videos, cartoons, and even a talking globe. I'm super excited to have my comedy partner, Rolland Lopez, on the breakdown. Thanks so much for being here, buddy.
Thank you, Rich. It's great to be here. And my first question for you is, what took so freaking long? I'm your partner. What took so long? I thought I was going to be first or second, at least in the top 3. It took this long to get me on here. But seriously, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for the kind words. I'm really excited. When I finally got the invitation for this, after I calmed down, I got very excited. So, yeah.
You yelled so much that Maggie came in here and that's her tail Maggie wagging. And she's like, is everything okay? I'm like, yeah, buddy, we're just doing bits. Good girl.
Dude, thank you so much for having me. And I love how you managed to make me sound. You even made me sound impressive to me,
which is impossible because you never are impressed with yourself.
I feel like we need to. I feel like we need to put some context around some of what you said about me. It's true. Okay. Evolution, the a cappella group I was in, was award-winning. That was in 2009, though. We're filming this in 2021. Sure. I mean, how far back are we going? Because I did a talent show in high school.
Oh boy, this is
it. I see why you didn't invite me earlier. I see why it took a very long time to get to me. Okay.
You do 29 episodes of a show and you're like, I've got this down. I know how to handle an interview. And then your comedy partner comes on. You're like, I have no control over this moment. None. No authority.
I love being here. Thank you so much. Thanks, Rich, for having me. Very excited. What's on the agenda?
Legitimately, though, the reason I didn't invite you on first is because I knew you would do it because, sure. Either that or we got to break up. And I was like, no, I want to establish this as like an actual podcast, a show that I got to reach out to people for. And so I wanted to kind of get the kinks down and what are some good questions? How long is the duration, et cetera. So that's why I intentionally waited to have you on until episode 30.
Okay. I like that you thought, because if you don't do it, we're going to break up. And maybe you just weren't willing to face that truth just yet.
It might be. So let's go back. Yeah. So let's go back. You were lots of things, but you weren't an improviser. What about improv made you go, hey, I'll try that next?
So I have been pursuing voiceover with different varying levels of success since 1997. Jesus, nice. I hate any sentence that has 19 in it. So that just makes it automatically sound old. At least with 20, you have half a second to think like, oh, well, it might be recent, but 19 completely, yeah. So I started pursuing voiceover in 1997 and I moved to Los Angeles probably prematurely in 1999 because I wanted to do animation. That's where everything was. I made a lot of missteps in that. And so I got my first professional job in 2003 and it kind of fizzled out my career. And then I took a year and a half off, or maybe even 2 years. And then I decided to get back on it. I met with somebody who kind of put me through, helped me come up with a plan. Mm-hmm. And that plan required a lot of different classes, including I took some scene study courses, a lot of voice acting courses. And I kept taking classes with the voice of Porky Pig, Bob Bergen, who's among other things. He was also Luke Skywalker and a ton of stuff, a big voice actor in animation. And I took several different classes with him at several different places. And he kept telling people, if you have money for one class, don't take a voiceover class, take improv. If you have money for just one class, he would say, don't do acting, don't take voiceover, go take improv. And I kept putting it off and putting it off. But I ended up taking 3 classes with him, and he kept telling people, and it just, I think it eventually stuck, that when I found out there was an improv theater about 10 blocks away from me, I decided to take their level 1 class. And I had only meant to take a few classes to get better at voiceover.
Sure.
And I just ended up falling in love with it. So it really was like, I was taking it for a purpose.
Yeah.
That wasn't for improv on its own. And it wasn't for on-camera acting. It was to become a better voice actor. And it ended up taking a life on its own. And there was a time when I think I actually started focusing on voiceover less because of my love of improv. It kind of surpassed it for a while. And now I'm trying to kind of balance it back. But
sure.
So that was a long-winded answer, right? That's another reason you waited a while. Yeah. We have time for 3 questions, so make them count. Each one's going to take a long time for me to answer.
For people who are listening to this, the reason why it sounds the way it does is because he's put his face comically close to the camera. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're seeing this, but if you're listening, I just want you to know the bit doesn't really have the magnitude if you don't understand the visual.
Well, I will say that from now on. From now on, I will say I'm up close to the camera.
Oh, good. There's more.
There's more. I'm going to do it a lot.
So this bit it's a running gag.
Expect it throughout.
Can't wait. So not a lot of improvisers I know are good at a lot of things, but not a ton of improvisers I know did stand up or do stand up or have done stand up. You did stand up long before you even tried improv.
Yeah. So I'm old, and I actually grew up as a kid without even for the most of my childhood, we didn't have, man, this really just makes me sound old. I can't even say the sentence.
Everyone's fine with your age. Everyone is fine with it.
Okay, are you?
Everyone
if you're not fine with my age, for those of you that are out there that are not
only
fine
one
with
who's
my
not
age,
fine.
Please don't tell me. Oh no, I hate it. I just had a big birthday, and I'm still trying to accept it. But I grew up in a time pre Comedy Central, I grew up before the explosion of the mid '80s of stand up, and this was even pre, we didn't own a VCR at this time. That's how fucking long it was. Am I allowed to curse on this?
Yeah.
Okay, that's how fucking long ago it was. I was young, and there was one TV show on PBS, one show a week that would have stand-up comedians. Okay. And this is, like I said, I didn't have a VCR at the time. I would actually hold up a tape recorder to the speaker and record the hour-long thing, and I would memorize a lot of the routines. To this day, Dr. Gonzo, I don't know if anyone knows that name. Whoopi Goldberg was on there. There was a lot of different people that I got to hear before, like I said, before the 80s kind of the stand-up blew up and Comedy Central appeared and all that. And so it became kind of this thing in my head that I want to do that. And you know how a lot of comedians say before they were old enough to go into a bar, they would sneak in and do sets and do open mics and stuff like that. Yeah, I wish I had done that. I waited till I was 21.
Well, I didn't do that.
I didn't do that. I didn't know you could I didn't know you could just lie. I didn't know you could flaunt the system. I didn't know you could. You
know how there's this country called Canada? Well, I've never been there.
I didn't know. So I waited till I was 21, and here I was I kept waiting and waiting, and I did stand up for maybe 3/4 of a year. As soon as I turned 21, and I sucked horribly. But I got to see a lot.
As everyone does when they start.
As everyone does, absolutely. And this was before the internet. Probably the internet existed, but it was only DARPA knew about it, or CERN knew about the internet.
Sure.
Right? DARPANet, but it didn't exist. So the only way to find out there were open mics was either through that free weekly newspaper kind of thing that every major city has. And I lived near San Francisco, or it was through word of mouth. So I was always trying to find new open mics. And I did that for about 3/4 of a year, and it just really, I sucked really bad. Then I graduated college. I went off to Europe for about 7 months, came back and started doing stand-up again. And I found I'd written all new stuff, and I found that just having 7 months of growing up, living outside of my own norm, my own normal life and daily life, made me a better stand-up. So that second year was so much better, and eventually came to a point where I was like, well, do I want to get a job and have some sort of security, or do I want to try and be a stand-up? And I had met enough stand-ups that I was like, I think I'm going to go with the job and security. And there's still a part of me that like wishes I had, because who knows what would have happened.
Sure.
But I saw a lot of stand-up comedians struggle. Like, I mean, it's a huge struggle. It's a hustle and it's a struggle. And very few of the comedians that I saw, have I seen them progress to where their names are still, right? Some definitely have, but it was such a relatively few that I'm like, I probably wouldn't have been one of those. I wasn't, anything special, I don't think.
So when you got into improv, did it kind of hit the same buttons that stand-up used to? Or did it feel totally different?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because most improvisers don't do stand-up because like they love improv for improv's sake. But like those of us like you and me who've done stand-up, like I think that, at least for me, part of the motivation is I just want to be on a stage making a crowd laugh. Yeah. And so improv does that for me. And, so I kind of let stand-up live on the back burner for a while.
So I went into improv. Can I share my quitting improv story real quick?
Of course.
So, like I said, I went into improv for a reason. I wasn't doing it for the art form. I don't think I'd ever seen improv before, except Whose Line Is It Anyway, obviously.
Sure. Yeah.
And when I was in Europe, as I mentioned, for 7 months, I was in Amsterdam for a time, and I saw Boom Chicago.
Oh, okay.
Which might have been my very first improv experience ever. Wow. But I didn't know it was something that was, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I did improv in college. I'm like, I don't think my college had improv back then. Like, it just wasn't part of my life.
Sure.
So I had never really seen improv, and definitely had never seen long form improv.
Yeah.
So I took levels 1, 2, and 3 in a vacuum. Now the school where you and I met, which was
West Side Comedy,
where we met, West Side Comedy Theater here in Santa Monica. They now have guidelines where they're like, they want every student to go see a certain number of shows. Yeah. And I, as a teacher and coach, I'm like, please go see great shows, go see bad shows, so because you're in your limits, right? You got this box of like, here's what I think improv is. And then you watch a team and you see someone doing something you haven't seen before. And you're like, oh, those limits are actually farther than I thought, right? Yeah. But unless you watch anything, you're stuck in what you know improv to be, right? Yeah. So I had never seen long form improv, and I took 1, 2, 3 in a vacuum. And by 3, which was game at the time, what the curriculum was at the time, it was game. And I hated it. I didn't understand it. And one night we had a class. It was like middle of level 3, and the theater was doing a faculty night. And the teacher said, hey, we're all gonna go and watch the faculty show tonight. So we're gonna end class early to go see the faculty show. And as we're walking from the class to the theater, I catch up to my instructor, and I say, hey, I don't get this. I'm not having any fun. I quit. I'm not coming back. It's not because of you. Like, it's got nothing to do with you. I'm just not getting this. And I wasn't having fun. Keeping in mind, I was doing this for a reason. I wasn't doing it for the art form itself. And I quit. And in my mind, mentally, I was done. Like, there was no way I was coming back the following week. And then we sat down and watched the faculty show. And
you said you quit, but then you stayed for the show.
Well, I stayed to be with them for the rest of the evening, right? It was still part of the class. So I wasn't gonna like walk away from.
You were just letting her know in the future you would not be coming back.
Right. Yeah. I was letting him know. Yeah. And I sat down. We watched the faculty show, and I think that was either the first time I had seen long form itself, or that was the first time I had seen good long form.
Sure.
Because I saw stuff that completely blew away, and all of a sudden it was like. In Ratatouille, when at the end of Ratatouille, when the food reviewer tastes the actual Ratatouille, and it's like all of a sudden he's like, and he's there with his, like, my eyes just went big and I went, oh my God, this is what we're doing.
Yep.
This is where we're headed. Oh my God. Yes, this is amazing. So after that, I went immediately back to my teacher. I said, all right, I'll see you next week. And
wow.
From then on, it was about, let me learn to do what they did, right? So then it became about the art form. And I'm winding back to answer your question. That was, even though I had seen Whose Line Is It Anyway, and I had seen Boom Chicago, that was essentially really what got me into improv as an audience member, was that faculty show. And it was long form. And I'd never seen anything like that. And so I kept working towards that. And so the idea of doing it to like make the audience laugh was a side benefit and was never the intention, right? I mean, maybe it was, but I saw that there was more to it than just making people laugh. So It wasn't ever like, oh, I'm getting the same thing that I am getting out of stand-up. And for like a year after that, people were like, oh, you should do short form. I'm like, no, I don't want to do short form. Short form. I just want to do this beautiful, artistic, like, oh God, the world is coming together. And it's, let me do this. My aura is shining on stage and coalescing with all these other auras to create this art that's in the moment, and it is ephemeral and will leave. And then I started watching Mission Improbable, and I'm like, holy crap, I want to do that. Oh my God, these guys are hilarious.
Ratatouille, the sequel. Ratatouille.
And doing short form, that does hit those buttons that were unearthed when I was a kid holding up that tape recorder. So I love getting laughs, but more than anything, I want the audience to be engaged. Which more often than not, it's easier for us to know when we hear laughter, but when we're with a visual audience like we did pre-pandemic and hopefully post-pandemic, there are other ways to see it. And as long as I know that they're still being engaged, like that is up there. So it's, the short form does definitely hit those buttons. So.
Yeah. So just to back up, you almost quit. Had your class not planned to go to a show, you might have never done improv again. Yeah.
100%.
If it was just 100%. A regular class that would have ended at 10 with exercises or whatever, you might have just...
have you ever been dating someone and like early on, you've gone on maybe 3 or 4 times and they do something and a switch goes off and you're like, oh, I can't date this person anymore.
Sure.
Like something's, that's what it was for me. Like I was like, oh, I can't do improv anymore. I hate this. So I went up when I said, I'm not coming back, like mentally, I had emotionally and mentally cut that cord.
Wow.
I was done with this thing called improv. Like I gave it a shot, Mr. Bob Bergen, I gave it a shot and took my class and hopefully my voiceover is better, but yeah. But then I got very lucky that was the night I had decided to quit.
And how long between the time that you started taking classes and the time you started teaching improv?
Ooh, good question. Between 2 and 3 years, maybe.
Wow. So you went from not knowing improv at all to teaching it relatively quickly.
Is that relatively quickly?
I would say so.
I believe it was about 3 years.
That's pretty great.
Because I can't speak for all theaters, but the theaters that I've been aware of generally have like a 6-class program.
Right.
And West Side Comedy Theater had these 6 classes. And once I took it, I was like, well, I got to keep taking classes. I kept going back and retaking classes with different instructors because I found that over time, I realized that the way I teach improv is based on who I am as a person, my experiences, not only as an improviser and as an audience member of improv, but who I am as a person, which stems all the way to like my family life and where I grew up. And, like we're going to teach different. Yeah, all connected. And so I eventually learned that, but I started to see that when I would take classes with different people, even though it was the same curriculum, I started picking up different things because different people would explain things in a different manner. Or I grew to be an improviser who could then actually understand what they had been trying to teach me all along, right? And so I kept taking classes, even though I was done with those 6, I kept going back and taking classes for easily another year and a half.
Wow. Just because you loved it and you just wanted to learn more.
Just because I loved it and I wanted to keep getting better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of that Ratatouille moment. Now, just in case anyone is like, wait, you live in Los Angeles. Why didn't you just hop in the car and go to like Second City or IO West or UCB? And clearly, you haven't lived in Los Angeles and had to make that drive from Santa Monica to Hollywood and try to find parking. Because if you did, you'd know why I stayed at the same theater for so long.
He's much closer to the camera at that point.
Yeah, I can walk to the theater. Or I could spend an hour and a half trying to get to another theater.
Well, it's a lesson that you can extrapolate, right? Because let's say you live in a town that only has one theater and you think, oh, I've graduated the program. What do I do now? It's like, well, if they have more than one teacher teaching level 3, if you only took one, you could take the other. And those perspectives are so valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. Not only from the teacher, but also you yourself look, every time you do improv, every time you do a show, let's say, by the time you've done the show, you have more experience than when you started.
Sure.
Right? You are hopefully a better player than you were right before you started. So a lesson that, let me give you an example.
I'll allow it.
A great, what'd you say?
I'll allow it.
No, thank you. A great improviser, and a wonderful human being, Jen Burton, who you know from Mission Improbable. Fantastic improviser. One of the, she used to be, she was in a 4-person show, I believe it's a 4-person show called Jerk Circus that performed on Sunday nights. I never missed it because they were just phenomenal. And she substituted a group that I was in, a house team. She coached us one night. And I said, I don't know if I necessarily said, I think I said no to something. I said no instead of yes and to something, but in my mind, the no made sense. Like, yeah, I know I'm saying no, but here's why I said it.
Sure.
And she was trying to get me to be like, no, but say yes, because there's so much more. And I'm like, yeah, but if I say no, and I fought it. And I still just like, I refused to accept what she was trying to tell me. And years later, maybe 3 years later, 4 years later, I found myself trying to teach the same concept that she had been trying to teach me. I'm like, oh my God, now I totally understand what she was trying to tell me. And I had to go back to her and I apologized. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. No, she didn't remember. To her, it was one night that she was substituting.
Sure.
But I was like, I was such a horrible student. And I wasn't in a place where I could see what you were trying to tell me.
Yeah.
But now I can. And that is to me just as important as the fact that I might be taking a class, with Rich Baker teaching and then taking a class with somebody else and getting a different perspective. I became a different person and I was now more open to lessons that I wasn't open to earlier. Because when you're starting out, you're still learning to open yourself up to improv.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, some people have it easier. I was probably a very closed off individual. So I had to it took me time to open up to a lot of stuff.
Yeah. What's like a quintessential lesson? I mean, I teach different workshops and obviously we teach our co-workshop together, but like if someone has taken a Rolland Lopez workshop, what's one thing they probably came away with?
Wow. I wish you'd give me some sort of cheat sheet to prepare for these questions. I thought we were friends, man. I thought you were my partner.
I apologize. I
slipped me a note or something.
Sorry that asking you about a thing that you teach people.
There's so much. I'm trying to distill it to like one or two things.
Sure.
And I probably phrase this in multiple ways. I'll phrase it here as address what was just done or said.
Yeah.
And if you're taking a class, you might hear me say like, don't let these things pass you by, or make everything that your partner on stage says or does important.
Yeah.
But the key behind it is like your partner, I'm almost positive I say this in almost every single class, no matter what the topic is. I could be teaching a salsa class and it'll be like, hang on a second, let me talk about what happens if your partner says or does something. When I say something on stage, or do something on stage, it is almost always 99.9% of the time, I do it so that way my partner reacts to it. I'm doing it to get some sort of reaction. I don't just say something and go, oh, I don't want you to react to that. I don't just go and move something, put something on the table. Like, I'm doing something to get you to react to me.
Yeah.
So if I'm doing that, if I do something on stage to get you to react, then the opposite must be true, that every time you do something or say something on stage, it's because you want me to react. And the best thing I can do to be a supportive partner and be your partner, whoever's partner on stage, is to have that reaction.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that I have to drop whatever the thread of the scene happens to be, right? We can go off on a little tangent and come back to that thread, but I need to react to it. Because what better way to yes and my partner than for them to say or do something and me to immediately play with that thing, whatever that is.
Yeah.
So that's, I would say that's one of probably the 2 or 3 things that I always end up saying in a class.
Nice.
So now no one's going to need to take my class. So thanks, man.
That's not how it works. So then you and me met 7.5 years ago, and like you weren't
doing Mission Improbable,
doing the show that you said you'd never do until you saw it, and then you couldn't help. Then you wanted to do it more, right? Yeah. To be fair, in all sincerity, I auditioned for the fun of the audition. I never thought I was going to get on. I was surprised to even get a call back. Wow.
So I consider myself very lucky that those events transpired.
I consider Mission Improbable pretty lucky for getting you on the team.
Thank you.
You weren't necessarily looking to form an indie team and make it a huge part of your life for the next 7.5 years. Like,
no.
This is a story that you and I have told in person, to people who ask all the time, but like, let's tell the genesis of how the heck we got together.
Okay. So I don't, okay, I'm gonna lay out some truths here that you might not be ready to.
I'm ready.
I don't know that I remember you prior to you coming up to me one day.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
There are a few people that I had done shows with in Mission Improbable whom I met as like, oh, you're doing a show tonight? Great, nice to meet you. And then completely forgot who those people were.
Sure.
I'm not going to name any names because I feel like I have to apologize again for forgetting. but I don't remember you, except for when you came up to me and said, hey, man, we should write something together. And I'm not a writer. I would love to one day, but out of everything that I do, I don't consider myself a writer. And I certainly never had any, I never had any plans or intentions to start writing sketches or write scripts or anything like that, or a pilot. It just wasn't something that I had ever thought about.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, oh, okay, sure. And then we did nothing. I'm sure you contacted me and I probably said, oh, yeah. And I didn't do anything because I didn't really know who you were. Even though we met doing a show. See, Mission Improbable at the time was 5 or 6 people on stage. Sure. So and so thank you to you though, for not letting it go, because we never wrote anything together and you came up to me again. And this time I remembered you as the guy that had asked me if you wanted to write that.
Great. This is great.
And you were like, you're like, hey, yeah, you're one of my best friends, man.
But not at first.
What?
Not at first. Not at first.
And you said, hey, since since we're not gonna write anything, we should do a 2-person show together. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay.
Okay, stranger, sure, I'll do a 2-person show with you.
I'm sorry, and you are.
Great. Oh, yeah. Great. You and I remember this very differently. I kind of love that we're having this happen.
Oh, do you? Oh my God! Let's rewind that.
So here's what I remember is doing a Mission Improbable show with you, and I don't remember what we did together, but I remember every time we were on stage together that I was just like, this guy's really funny. And then you were there watching an MI show one night that I was in, because you sometimes back then would just come to the theater and check out a show, I think, right?
Sure.
And I was like, oh, hey, we did a show 2 weeks ago or whatever, and like you were so friendly, and like more so that no one was a dick to me when I first moved here, but like you were just like really outgoing friend, and then it was either I think it was G chat, like you G chatted, like you hit me up or something about whatever.
Wow,
this is what I remember.
I brought up the 1900s and brought up that I didn't have a VCR, but saying I contacted you in GChat, that makes me sound old.
Hey, it could have been worse. Could have been AOL Instant Messenger.
So I contacted you on GChat. That sounds about right.
Yeah, but here's what I remember is that you just kind of hit me up like we were friends who texted. You're just like, oh, good show last week, something, whatever. And we were just like texting back and forth like we were friends. I'm like, I barely know this guy. And like, we're texting like we're friends. But I was like,
wait. We're like our relationship is like an object in a time loop movie that was only there for the loop. Where the hell did it start?
I don't know.
Because I don't remember. Okay, go on. So apparently I contacted you. Keep going.
And then I remembered liking being on stage with you and liking it like just like liking you as a person. And I'm like, oh, this guy's reaching out to me. I was brand new to LA, hadn't partnered up with anyone yet, and I was just kind of looking to see what's what. And I just remember thinking like, I bet we have the same sense of humor. Let's write a sketch show together. And you were like, I'm not a writer. And I remember this all happening on GChat.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay, well, you're an improviser. You want to do a 2-person show? And you were like, okay. And then I hit you up like 2 or 3 days later and like, we have a slot at Second City.
Yeah. Okay. So here's where our stories now, like they actually coincide. It becomes the same story. Because I remember you like walking up to me, pushing people aside.
Out of my way, I have a proposition.
I must speak with Rolland. You coming up to me, you're like, you saying, Mr. Lopez.
Yep. I don't know if anyone's
gonna. If it is okay with you, sir. And I'm like, no, it's okay to make eye contact. Please look up.
Come up next to me. It's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah, I totally remember it different. But I do remember you saying, and this is where the paths now converge. I remember you saying, "Hey, I got us a slot at Second City," and I remember me freaking the fuck out because I was like, I don't know this guy. I've never done a 2-person show with him before. I have no idea. I have no idea how he performs. And I hadn't yet like since you and I met 7.5 years ago, I've gotten. It's funny. I don't know. In terms of the amount of time, I would say it's about 50-50 doing improv since I've known you and doing improv before I knew you. Mm. But I feel like I've grown so much as an improviser since I met you because of all the stuff that we've done, meeting people throughout the U.S., visiting other communities and performing with them. So now when someone says like, hey, do you want to do a 2-person show? I don't care anymore. Like I wouldn't even worry about how much experience they could have had. 20 years experience, they could have had 2 days experience. Like, I'm not going to care. Yeah. But back then I was like, oh God, I'm going to do a 2-person show with someone I've never seen. So I remember saying, can we please have a rehearsal?
Yeah. And I was like, oh, sure.
Yeah, right. And you signed out the
little rec room in my apartment building. Yeah.
In your apartment building. And we set a timer. We knew we had like 25 minutes for the show that we were going to do at Second City. So we set a timer. I think I grabbed a book from the room and just chose a word or something.
Sounds right.
As our suggestion. I wish we had the forethought to record it.
Yeah. All I remember about that rehearsal is, well, I remember being blown away at the end, of course, but like we both agreed on that, but I remember there was some shoveling involved.
Shuffling in terms of characters.
It was shuffling, yes, but shoveling with a shovel.
Oh, there was shoveling involved. I remember
there was something. We're digging up something, treasure or something. I don't remember. And I just remember like we would go from one scenario to another. And I had never really played that way particularly before, like just kind of back and forth. But I'd also only done two-person improv with one other person, and we like our form was we set it in one location. So I'd never you and I just yes-anded the moment, just kept like, we're these characters right now, we're jumping over to these characters here, and they all intersect, and that's kind of been a staple of what we've done ever since. But I mean, that was really kind of a first for me. I remember that.
I don't know if you were my first. I don't know, because I really enjoy doing two-person shows, and you know, I'd done other two-person shows, but there was something. I really remember at the end of it, when the timer went off, me going, okay, holy crap, there's something here. Like,
yeah.
There was a definite chemistry between the two of us on stage. And I'm sure that even if I had played similar to that before, about different locations, not to the level that you and I had played, or not with that ease that you and I had played.
Yeah.
And it really did feel like we were just yes-anding the hell out of whatever the other person said or did.
Yeah.
Which, like you said, is kind of like our staple. That when people have asked us at festivals, they've asked us afterwards, like, what's your form? We're like, we don't really have one. We follow where the show goes, and we just yes and out of each other. So it could end up going like this, but we're going together.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it doesn't matter.
And we've done the mono scene show. You know, we've looked back at shows and gone, oh, the form looked like this after the fact, but we didn't. Right. We weren't following that form, kind of thing.
Right. Exactly. A form always comes out of it.
Sure.
You know,
anything's a form.
Right. Anything's a form. Even if it's just a mono scene, it's still a form.
Sure.
But, you know, and we've done shows where it's like, oh, okay, we do one scene and then a second scene and then a third scene. And maybe there's a thread that goes around, maybe there isn't. And we've done stuff that kind of weaves in and out. And that's one of the things I love about playing with you. And that's why I think you still surprise me on stage, and we are still doing things that I'm like, holy crap, look at that. Look what we did.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah. You still throw curveballs, and I'm like, nope, I can play with it, but I did not see it coming.
Yay!
I mean, that's kind of like, you know, with some improvisers, like I remember back in Chicago, there were some people that kind of had moves, and you go, oh, I bet he's going to pull out that one move right now, and like, oh, there's that character, there's that voice, there's that whatever.
I have moves.
I'm sure you have moves, but they don't. I don't there's nothing I've codified that like helps me predict what you're going to do next ever.
Oh, maybe not like that. Yeah, but or I would say that each of us have found working together. Yeah. Like there are some things you do that I'm like, oh, this is a strength of his. It's not necessarily a strength of mine. So when you start doing something, I know that that's kind of like your strength.
Yeah. And you love playing two characters having a conversation.
Yeah.
So not every show, but like in a lot of shows, if I see you play one character and then respond, I just shut up and I go, he's about to he's got the next 45 seconds all on his own. I'm just going to sit here and just do nothing.
Yeah, but what was great was the first time I did that, and I remember this show so well. You and I it was here at the West Side Theater. We were members of a cult, like Eyes Wide Shut type of like wearing masks. And I ended up playing husband and wife, like bickering and you were like the cult leader. And I as I'm bickering, and this was a moment, this was one of those moments that I talked to my students about, where I was like, I got so uncomfortable because I'm like, holy crap, I'm going back and forth. And I've already gone beyond my comfort limit on doing this, you know? And if I stop now, it is stopping out of fear. But if I keep going, I'm going to be in uncharted territory, and uncharted territory is where a lot of gold and fun can happen. Oh, right.
That'd be a good workshop title, Uncharted Territory.
Uncharted Territory?
Yeah.
I already wrote it down.
Take it. Seriously.
You can have it if you want. Yeah. But Uncharted Territory is where actually that is a great workshop title.
Okay, yeah. You said it. It's yours. Take it.
Let's teach it together. And so I kept going. And it was one of those moments where I'm like, I had enough experience over time that I knew that I could handle being in the uncharted. I could be comfortable in that discomfort and stay there and keep doing what I was doing. And I didn't know without knowing where it was going to go, without knowing how it was going to end, without knowing if the audience was even going to enjoy it, I could still continue doing it. And every so often, as I was playing these two characters that would move location and had different voices, I would look over and you're doing different things. You're like lighting a cigarette and you're sitting it out, you're grabbing a book. And I'm like, oh, look at that. I mean, look at the support. That was just amazing to me. And over time, anytime I did that, I always tried to get a look at you because I knew you were going to be doing something. And I knew I didn't have to worry about you as a partner at that moment. And I love that.
Because some people would feel like why are you leaving me out of it? You know, some people would get all shitty about it. And I'm like, no, let him do his thing. I'm good. I got a book to read.
Like, oh, that looks like fun. I want to be part of it. You know,
well,
and I've been guilty about that in larger group shows where, you know, 2 or 3 people are on stage doing something. I'm like, oh, I want to be part of that scene. That looks so much fun. And then I ruin the scene. And now I try not to be that person.
Tale as old as time, right? Like if they don't need you, don't jump on, right? Like jump onto the scenes that look awkward and stilted. They need you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. I could probably do this myself, but I'm curious what your answer is. What's a character voice that you do that still makes you laugh?
So there's a character I used to do when I was part of a house team at the West Side Comedy Theater called Team X. If there's any of my Team Xers out there watching this. No, that's that. You did Wakanda Forever.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, this guy.
There you go. This is Wakanda Forever. This is Team X. Yeah, they're different.
Both great improv teams.
Yeah. So Team X, there was a character I would do, and I always started the same way. And it might be a little voiceover trick where it was easy for me to get into the character by saying the same phrase. A lot of voiceover actors will do that. They have like one phrase or one word that'll get him into the accent or get him into the character.
Sure.
And I used to get on stage, I'd be like, Harold, I looked into the refrigerator, Harold, and there was no water there for me, Harold. And I just would play this character, and that, I don't know what the character's name. I don't know if I was Harold's wife, Harold's husband, didn't matter. Harold, I have something to complain about, Harold. And I used to do that all the time on Team X. I don't think I've ever done it with you.
I don't recognize that character.
Yeah, but it's still, that character I still enjoy. I don't know why. I think I have good memories from doing that character on Team X. Is there another character that I've done with you that I really enjoy? Well, you and I have played kind of characters based off the Gophers from the Looney Tunes.
Which ones are the Gophers?
So, all right. So I brought up these characters before in classes, so I know a lot of people out there don't know who I'm talking about. But Looney Tunes, which is Bugs Bunny and the Warner Brothers, those, like all Daffy Duck and all those characters, they would have these two. I would use these as an example of peas in a pod. You know, and peas in a pod, if you don't know, is when you have two characters that are fairly, pretty much like almost identical. They think alike, they act alike, and it's just fun to watch these two people that are kind of like themselves interact. Kind of like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern from Shakespeare, or Waldorf and Statler from the Muppets.
Or the Crows. What are the 3 crows from, what's that Disney movie? Is it Jungle Book? It doesn't matter.
I don't remember.
Forget about it. Don't worry about it.
So there is also, so in Looney Tunes, there's these two gophers that were like ultra polite, like after you, no, after you. No, I insist. Oh no, I insist. And I love those characters. And I think I did that voice once, and you did what we sometimes do. It's just like, oh, that's fun. Let me play that character also.
Yeah.
And we ended up being these two, like I got you a birthday present. Like, oh, what did you get me? And it was just these two, the two Looney Tune gophers on stage as characters. To this day, I don't know who we were. I've gone back and rewatched it. I know that we were in a relationship because it was your birthday we were celebrating, but I don't know. Yeah, in my mind, we were like those Looney Tunes gophers. So I love playing those characters. You and I haven't done that in a long time. I think we've done it a few times. We're like, we need to find new characters to do.
I'm always on the lookout for new characters. I love them.
Yeah, it's always fun to come up with something new.
I can talk to you forever, but we're gonna wrap this up. So where are you sending people? Where should people go to check out more Rolland Lopez?
Are we wrapping this up?
Yeah.
Oh. All right.
Did you want more? Do you have more? Do you have something? Declare. What are you declaring?
No, I guess I don't.
Oh.
All right.
Okay. Well, then we'll probably wrap it up.
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
Don't wrap it up. I have something to say.
Let me think. My Instagram is Rolland Lopez, voice actor. Rolland has 2 L's, like Rolland.
Yeah.
Rolland Lopez, voice actor. Also, you can get a hold of me through any of the Rolland and Rich's stuff, our Instagram, our Facebook, our YouTube channel, which you're probably watching this on if you're watching it on YouTube. I have a series as part of our channel as well called There's Great Improv Everywhere. If you haven't seen that, check it out. It's where I take clips from a different team's show, with their permission, of course. And I show how some of their clips are really great examples of improv. And I did season 1 a while back, and the pandemic affected me in a lot of ways. And one of the ways it affected me was like I kind of, found that I didn't have the energy and excitement to continue that or to start the second season earlier. But I'm really happy. I had a friend recently. Someone reached out to me about 2 weeks ago and said, "Can we please have more? There's Great Improv Everywhere." I'm like, "All right, I'll start working on a season 2." So I'm working on season 2 now.
It's a good show, man. It's a good show. Like people, you can learn from it, and like you get to see teams you're probably not exposed to, and like I think it's a great concept.
Oh, thank you. And I did do one where I was like, I think it was the New Year's episode where I was like, "All right, we're gonna watch clips of me be a really bad improviser and screw it up." That wasn't as much fun for me to do.
It was cool, man. It was super vulnerable. I mean, that's like, we got to show the good and the bad, right?
Yeah. But that's how Rolland Lopez, voice actor, through Instagram, and you can find me through all of our Rolland and Rich's stuff.
Rolland Lopez, always great. Thanks for finally being on the breakdown.
Well, it's just nice to have been asked, Richbaker. Thank you so much for thinking of me finally.